Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our latest enablement webinar, Hearing Loss, Discover the Latest Workplace Adjustments. My name's Andy Rigby, and I am one of the enablement leads here at Posturite, our division that helps many organisations with neurodiversity and disability assessments and workplace solutions throughout both the UK and globally. A little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our speakers today. Today's webinar is being recorded and the slides will be made available. And you will be able to listen to this again via our website, where all our webinars are located. If you haven't already, please do have a look at our previous webinars over recent months at posturite.co.uk/webinars. There are some excellent speakers with really good content to listen to, from DSE processes to menopause, to useful to go and listen back. There are opportunities to ask questions today in the Q&A box that should be visible on your screen. So please be aware that your questions will be visible to everyone, and individuals can vote on questions submitted, which will bring them closer to the top of the list for me to ask the panelists. So please do get involved in the Q&A box rather than the chat box. Feel free to say hello to everyone in the chat box. For accessibility, so this can be activated and deactivated within your account settings under the Meetings tab. Click Automated Captions to enable or disable. Also, for those that are viewing this webinar via the Zoom desktop client, we are also joined by our BSL interpreters, Sarah and Bibi from Interpreting Matters. So for those on a web browser or phone, you can switch to the Zoom app on the desktop, and this is an option for you, which I do encourage everybody to do. So when discussing our next webinar, I'm keen for this subject to be at the forefront. The subject and discussing hearing loss in more detail is thankfully on the rise, but there is so much more that can be done to improve the lives of those individuals who have this. To take the conversation further, we're joined today by both David Mitchell from our enablement division and Paul Minikin from FM Hearing Systems. David joined Posturite in 2022 and has over 20 years of experience working as an assistive technology provider, implementing many technology solutions for individuals with disabilities. Paul is a practicing audiologist with a particular interest in Phonak Rogers systems to complement the performance of hearing aids. Over the last 15 years, Paul's company has been a major supplier of equipment into the UK workplace. So to set the scene, the equipment helps people with hearing loss communicate more easily in meetings, both large or small, on the telephone, including video calls, and generally overcoming the issues of noise, reverberation, and distance. Hearing aids. Paul also maintains his mission in life is to spread the word about the best kept secret in audiology, which is very intriguing. But Paul, you'll have to wait about another 20 minutes to do that, I'm afraid, because without further ado, I'll hand over to David.
Thanks, Andy. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So yeah, basically my role, as Andy suggested, I've been with Posturite for the last 18 months. I've been in this industry for the last 20 plus years. Yeah, but basically I'm also hearing impaired, hence why I'm delivering this session today, guys. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience of being hearing impaired within workplace, how I discovered I was hearing impaired, and then also some of the equipment. We'll go into quite a bit of detail of that later on, that I'm also using today. But also Paul will help me later on to describe some of the solutions we can help with different working scenarios. Can we go on the next slide, please, Tom? So we just want to start to run the session, guys, give you some stats on disabilities in workplace in relation to hearing loss as well as other conditions. So over 90% of disabilities are not immediately visible. And that also relates to hearing loss. Many of the new hearing aids are in here, so that actually within the ear, you can't really see them. I'm wearing some today. You probably can't see behind my ears, and you probably see the tubes if you were closer. So a lot of the technology is quite invisible, so you don't get to see the disability straight away. Around 21% of working age adults have a disability. So that's quite high when you think about it, you know. So most of your employees, or around 21%, will have a disability, and that may be a hidden or invisible disability. On average, the age of acquiring a disability, so that's where you may acquire it either through illness, accident, or even age, and age is one of the major ones that I'll mention. So around 53 is the age that people will start to acquire them and above, and then just below that, 83% of disabilities are acquired. So that's quite high when you think about it. And a lot of the kind of relation to acquiring a disability is down to age relation. So people are now being asked to work later in life. We're all being asked to either, you know, top up our pensions so we can get more money in there because the cost of living's gone up, so we're working later. Or it might be that we're coming to an age where we want to kind of retire, semi-retire, and the companies want to keep our skill sets. And we're finding that more and more with some of our clients, that skill sets are really hard to acquire these days. A lot of the younger generation are looking for different opportunities. So we're being asked to work later and later, and therefore we're getting older and we're acquiring more disabilities. Around 1 in 10 of the working population has a degree of hearing loss. And then basically over the age of 65, basically people around 42% will have a disability. Next slide, please, Tom. So to kind of round off the stats, an estimated 1.3 billion people experience significant disability. This represents 16% of the world's population, so that's 1 in 6. So we're not just talking about your colleagues, guys, we're talking about your customers, you know, we're talking about your family. So yeah, it's quite a high percentage. And if you look at the Accenture report there just on the side, basically in 2018, getting to equality, the disability inclusion advantage, when companies actually supported individuals, they saw 28% higher revenue and a 30% better performance on economic profit margin compared to their competitors. So by supporting these individuals, we really get the best out of them, and people become more dedicated because they've got that nice welcoming support that we're giving. Next slide, please, Tom. So we're going to cover types of hearing loss, guys. I'm going to mention my type of hearing loss as we go through. So basically, the sensory neural hearing loss is caused by damage to the hair in your ear cells or the inner ear. The damage can be both. Now, this is the hearing loss that I have, guys. I found out around 7 years ago by actually going to Phonak for testing some of the equipment for our customers. And I was wearing a headset to test some of the kit. I actually began to hear noises that I'd forgotten I wasn't hearing anymore. And it kind of all made sense then, why I'm always like telling the wife to turn the TV up, and, you know, asking people to repeat themselves, even to the point where I was learning to lip read and actually communicating off their mannerisms, the way they spoke, whether they were laughing, whether they looked sad, that kind of thing. I was actually learning myself to communicate because I didn't realize I had this issue. And testing the equipment really opened up the fact that I needed support. I needed to go and get a hearing test. Initially, I thought it was waxing the ears, which is the second possible cause of hearing loss. That was removed, but then it was actually damage to my ear, which was the sensory neural. And yeah, basically by using hearing aids, that enables the sounds that I'm missing, which is certain frequencies. I don't catch words very well. And we're going to talk about some of the equipment today that will support your hearing aids. Now, I'm wearing some today, some of the Roger devices, and like I said, we'll go into detail further on about those. Next slide, please, Tom. So hearing loss in the ear, next slide. So age-related hearing loss is typically the most common type. So we mentioned that about more and more people working later in life. So we're seeing more and more people with hearing loss, especially as they get to later in life. Remembering as well, guys, that these might be in higher positions in the workplace by now. They've worked there for so long, they may have been promoted, they may get to director level, etc. And everybody needs support. It's not just, you know, the people who are the general employees. We need to support everybody. And in addition to this, most people can suffer from hearing loss due to sound, and that can be in the workplace. Many people can work in different environments. And that can be the music industry, it can be industrial industry. I actually worked in a foundry in the past when I first started work from school, and that was high levels of noise all the time. And if you didn't wear the protection, there's a high chance that it's going to cause damage to your hearing. So yeah, different types of working environments can cause issues if it's long-term sound and noise that they're experiencing. Okay, most people will suffer from this loss due to age, but yeah, it's more common hearing loss in the workplace than you might imagine. Your hearing loss starts to drop around the age of 20, so in your 20s, and typically you lose the higher frequencies, the typical sounds that you gradually lose. And it's hard to catch words when you lose these frequencies, what people are actually saying, asking people to repeat themselves. And even wearing hearing aids, it doesn't mean that over distance you're going to be able to hear better. It means that at close up you're going to hear conversations better. But then for distance and using technology, you might need further support, which we're going to talk about today. Next slide, please. So I wanted to mention tinnitus, guys, because it is a common hearing issue that we get, and a lot of people have this. Now, you can have tinnitus without having hearing loss, or you can have tinnitus and have hearing loss. I actually have tinnitus as well. So I suffer with the ringing that it mentions there. There is also buzzing, a whooshing sound, a humming sound. You might hear hissing. You might hear a throbbing noise. I actually hear my heartbeat sometimes when I'm trying to sleep more than anything else, or music or singing. I also hear little tweeting noise. There's always a little bird sat on my shoulder and it's tweeting away along with the tinnitus. Now, hearing aids can suppress it and can help and take away and muffle the sound that you're hearing in your head all the time. However, this can be overwhelming for some people, and it can become to the point where stress and anxiety over hearing it can actually make it feel as though you can't cope. And the issue with tinnitus is the more stressed you are and the more anxious you are, the higher the sound goes. So mine is quite higher towards the end of the day, after the working day. I've been working hard all day. And then by the time I get to the point of rest period, the tinnitus is louder. And yeah, once I take my hearing aids out, it's there and it's quite a loud sound that only I can hear. Nobody else can hear it. Next slide, please, Tom. So looking at supporting tinnitus, we can replace the sound. There are different types of sound that can support this. They call them things like brown noise, white noise, things like that. But when you look at what people listen to, things like sounds of rivers, sounds of the sea, sounds of rain falling on a roof, there's loads of different types, crackling fires. There's lots of different types, and it's all down to each individual what actually supports them. Mine seems to be the rain on the roof kind of sound, although I wish it was the sea because it's lovely to listen to. But yeah, it seems to be the rain on the roof kind of sound. It just eases it away. It kind of takes away the noise that you're hearing by replacing it with a different sound frequency. Tinnitus one-to-one strategies is a good support option for individuals. We find that where they're getting very high anxiety and not coping with it very well, one-to-one strategies can help. And there's no cure for tinnitus, guys, so it's not something we can get rid of, although they are trying to look at different ways of supporting it with technology and stuff. At the moment, there is no cure. And it's more about managing the symptoms than trying to find a cure. So again, the one-to-one strategies, replacement noise, things like that. Even to the point where individuals wearing headsets, listening to music to try and dim out the noise while they've got day-to-day work can help individuals. Next slide, please, Tom. So hearing loss assessment. So how can we get support, guys? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, and then we'll talk about what is offered from our services from Posturite. So the assessment is basically aimed to put in support to help you achieve your day-to-day working role. And we basically look at that by looking at what you do on a day-to-day job, and then what kind of technology might support that. Okay, and sometimes technology might not be the answer, but on many occasions it is. At the end of the assessment, you'll get a full report detailing what we're recommending and why. So we're giving justification why, and then basically advising on what further support solutions might be available. Next slide, please, Tom. So what we do on an assessment, and this is what I went through myself, guys. and they looked holistically at what my working job role is. So we look at the type of job. Are you working in an office all the day on a computer? Are you on a shop floor? Are you in a laboratory? You know, that kind of thing. Even we supported people like a greensman on a golf field. So yeah, there's loads and loads of different working roles where different support might be suited, and we look at that and then make recommendations from that. For me, it was more meetings, delivering webinars such as we're doing today, day-to-day telephone calls, Teams calls. So originally I had telephony connection. Now it's more, I've got digital connection through the computer because all of my calls are through the computer, or supporting mobiles even. So yeah, the different kind of technology is reviewed, what the individual use over the day, and then we look at basically what support can help with that. But additionally, also, what are you doing in face-to-face meetings? Are you meeting people around a table? So maybe 8 people around a table in a conference meeting. Maybe it's a larger meeting. Maybe you're doing training environments, delivering live presentations, or being a part of that. And even learning on the job. One thing that we often forget about individuals when we're considering their working role is their continued learning. So they need to be continually learning over the path of their working role. And how can we support that in that different environment? Again, it might be in large scale rooms where individuals are watching presentations and getting involved. So we look at the different scenarios. We're going to talk about some of the technology as we move through, guys. And then lastly is basically looking at support from their colleagues as well. Individuals might not get the support they need from the people who work with them because they don't understand how to converse with the person who has an hearing loss or maybe deaf. So we can give them hearing loss awareness and basically support them with different ways of communicating. Things like how to communicate best over Teams by supplying subtitles, and also things like if you're delivering presentations, repeat questions from somebody in the audience. So there's all different things that we can look at in supporting individuals and recommendations. Next slide, please, Tom. So here we're going to talk about the different kind of technology. So support for colleagues, commonly recommended options, obviously from a hearing loss assessment, which is quite key. The tinnitus one-to-one strategies I've already mentioned. We then move on to some of the technology. So I'm going to bring Paul in to talk about some of the technology. I'm currently using a Roger On device, which Paul's going to mention as well. That connects to my hearing aids with a receiver. I've got other ways of connecting to my aids, but I prefer the receivers direct in. And that basically supports me with calls direct into the computer, delivering Teams meetings. In addition, I can use that on a desk for other meetings, but Paul will give you a better overview being the expert on the kit.
Okay, yeah. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've got some equipment behind me here. But basically, what we're looking at, first of all, is hearing aids will address hearing loss, but hearing aids are not a perfect solution. You've got different types of hearing aids that will do the job to one degree or another. The best technology you can get when it comes to hearing aids, ideally you follow that course. But then you get into the workplace, which is generally a pretty difficult acoustic environment, and sometimes you need a little bit of extra help. Typically, general communication issues. I think we've already touched on it already. Small and big meetings. Hearing at distance is quite a big thing. So if somebody's further away from you, you can't hear them so well. I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? But the physics of it and the way that hearing aid technology and hearing aid microphones work is that when you've got hearing loss and when you're wearing hearing aids, even really good quality hearing aids, distance really affects the clarity of speech understanding. So once you get outside a social bubble area, really, and that's been a problem over the last few years, everybody's been wearing masks and whatnot and can't see people's faces. But basically, in a meeting situation, when you sat around a table with 4, 5, 6, up to 25 people, it becomes very difficult when you've got hearing loss and where hearing is, David. I'm sure you'll confirm that. to be able to join in fully with the meetings. So you need a little bit of an extra helping hand. Distance is one aspect. Reverberation is another one that people don't really think too much about. But in the workplace, it's often the case that there's high ceilings, hard surfaces, sound bounces around, and when you've got a good level of hearing, you can cope with quite a lot of reverberation in the room without losing any speech understanding. But it becomes more critical when you've got hearing loss, and when you're wearing hearing aids, if there's a lot of hard surfaces in the room. You know, it can be a problem. Obviously, with background noise as well, as hearing aid technology's got better able to deal with noise and various noise cancellation strategies, but it can only get you so far. So hearing aids aren't perfect, and actually the equipment that we supply isn't perfect as well. That might seem a little bit shocking for me to say as a supplier, but the idea is that with hearing aids, this can when I say hearing aids, we can be talking about bone anchored hearing aids as well, and cochlear implants. People with anything from moderate to very severe hearing loss, very little hearing left. Wearing hearing instruments, you can never get a perfect result, but the idea is to get as close as you can to natural hearing. And the equipment that we supply adds an extra layer of quality on there. It's effectively, I suppose you could say, it's like turbo boosting the performance of hearing aids. It adds an extra layer of quality. So if you're wearing cochlear implants and you're in which you've got a very severe hearing loss there, and you're working in a call center, which is probably the most challenging environment anybody can work in with all the noise. It's anybody who's been in a call center will understand this. But we quite routinely supply our equipment to people wearing cochlear implants and working in call centers and being able to function quite easily. That's a pretty extreme example, but you know, the idea is to overcome distance and reverberation and background noise and listening to audio devices. So we're on a Zoom meeting here. That would potentially be quite challenging for somebody with hearing loss and with hearing aids. Desk phone telephony as well. People still use them. I know everybody talks about USB headsets and Zoom and Teams and whatnot, but people are still using desk phones as well. And the equipment that we can supply, it can really help to enable people where they might feel they're being held back with a disability of hearing loss and but not really want to vocalize that. The idea is the kit that we supply helps to propel people forward, really, to help them to be the best version of themselves in the pursuit of accessibility and inclusivity. Sorry to ramble on a bit here. I just got a couple of little bits of extra things to say. So the main equipment we supplied over the years is tailored to the individual. So you've got an individual in your workplace who has got some hearing loss and perhaps is struggling, and it's a bit of a journey for them to admit this in the first place and then actually get around to doing it, you know, but there's support there to help them. So we supply a lot of equipment, particularly to people in the workplace, for help with meetings large and small, you know, video calling, desk phone telephony, audio devices, and just general communication. One of the things that I'll just very quickly touch on is something that myself and David have been working on quite a bit over the last numerous months. We've been backwards and forwards a lot, haven't we, David? Yeah. And this is the idea that you know, generally in the past we've looked at helping individuals, but also you've got organizations that have got this this thing about accessibility and inclusivity to reach people perhaps that are coming to a place within an organization. That might be people within the organization coming in to a central point for a meeting, a training session, a training room, or perhaps a small conference room. And we've got a particular bundle of products that we've worked on, which it's accessibility in a box. It's a case like so, and a speaker system, which is designed to help people that wear hearing aids that can connect up to the equipment wirelessly, that wear hearing aids that can't connect up, and people that have got hearing loss but aren't wearing hearing aids. Just generally covering the bases of accessibility and inclusivity in the workplace for an organisation. So you've got addressing the needs of individuals, and you've got addressing the needs of organisations as well. And this particular project is something that we've worked exclusively with Posturite and with ourselves and David in particular, and we're really quite excited about this potential to meet this need. It's an unmet need as far as we're concerned right now. So I think that's about as much as I can say right now.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
Next slide, please, Tom. So guys, I wanted to mention, so obviously working with Paul, you can see that we're trying to pioneer on the latest kind of technology and solutions. One of the recent devices that we launched, and you could be able to see this in one of our webinars, is the X-ray glass device. This is a different way of supporting individuals. Basically, it's augmented reality within the glasses. And what that means is you can see what is around you, but you'll see a visual in front of you as well, which is augmented by the device. And it uses an app on your phone, which we'll show you in a moment. But basically, you see subtitles of what is being said in the conversation with yourself and other individuals. And yeah, basically the app runs through into the glasses, and the newer glasses are going to come wireless. And basically any of the conversations is going to be relayed in the glasses, and you'll see the subtitles, and you'll be able to see each speaker. Additionally, certain features you can have with it is it can translate from languages, which is a really good function. And we're getting a lot of inquiries from clients on that. But also it's got AI technology, guys. So you could actually say, give me a summary of that conversation, and it'll summarize what you've just had in a meeting, giving you an overview, cut down minutes of the meeting as such, and you can save that technology. It's all stored locally, so it's very secure. So there's no external servers or anything like that. So all your conversations are very secure. And for home use, guys, you can download it and use the app now, completely free. But for workplace, we have the addition of the glasses and then the additional AI features and stuff like that. There are other things you can do, like ask it for what today's weather is, or how to make chicken soup for an evening meal. So it uses AI technology as you would expect. So yeah, we're trying to pioneer new products. Next slide, please, Tom. So yeah, basically, guys, that's it from myself and Paul. If you wish to get in touch with us and talk about the different services, obviously we're going to do the Q&A in a moment. But yeah, you can get onto us through enablement@posturite.co.uk, and they'll refer through to us guys to give you the different support. There are many questions coming prior to this, and I'm sure I've seen quite a few coming in as we've had the Q&A coming up. So yeah, it's going to be one of those where we can really do onward support for you guys. Any questions? Over to you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm Paul. That's brilliant. Yeah, don't go anywhere. There's plenty of questions that have come in. As Dave mentioned, there's a few that came in prior to today. Just a quick thanks from me, really. There's a lot of people obviously engaging in the Q&A and engaging in the chat, and actually was really interested in sharing a few personal experiences as well. So thanks for that, and certainly things like life events that have caused hearing loss. And obviously what we generally get on these webinars is a lot of people tune in for obviously the content, but for a lot of both professional and personal reasons. So it's really interesting, and just thanks for sharing that. There's quite a few queries in terms of the environment and different environments that people are in. And so probably one of the questions that I've picked out is what types of reasonable adjustments can be made to accommodate employees with hearing loss. There's a question that's come in around teacher settings. There's one that's come in regarding call center environment. There's one that's come in on the Q&A in terms of a large office. And sorry, before I let somebody speak, the other layer of this is also the mental health impact that this can have, and very sort of brings frustration, brings anxiety. So obviously a solution in these circumstances are really important. So whether it's a general answer, teacher settings, call center environments, large offices, is there a go-to from a reasonable adjustments point of view?
I'll just give my kind of personal opinion before we ask Paul on the technical kind of things. For me, when I was actually kind of not realizing I had hearing loss, My anxiety was higher, not able to understand people talking in meetings too well. So I always found that quite frustrating. But also in social environments, you know, when you're in the canteen talking to people, not hearing what's going on, or even lunch meetings, you know, you're in a noisy environment. The sound around you is higher than anything else. So yeah, it can get frustrating to the point where even I wasn't going out sociably. I'd feel more comfortable just staying at home and avoiding those situations and scenarios. And that gets to the same in workplace. The worse it gets, the more you feel like that. So yeah, high anxiety, high stress, high worry. And if the support, probably Paul's better to answer that. He's actually answered a little bit of that as he went through his section there. But yeah, different kind of scenarios, Paul. That best for you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose the best thing would be just to explain how very quickly, very briefly, how this equipment works. I'll try and keep it as small as I can. I tend to rabbit on a little bit and make 2 minutes, 10 minutes, but here we go. So this is a phone at Roger on. It's a transmitter. It's a wireless microphone, and that I think you actually showed that earlier on, didn't you, Dave? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using that.
Yeah. So basically, how this works, it's quite a fancy little bit of kit. It's about the size of your index finger, if you like, not much fatter, and it has like a little LCD screen there that tells you what it's doing. But basically, when it's flat on a table, it's in all-round mode. It's in omni mode. So you put that in the middle of a table up to maybe 6 or 7 people, maybe, and it will work absolutely fine. It's got microphones splitting out into different directions, and it will pick up the strongest speech type sound, pick that up via the Roger on, and then wirelessly send it on to straight into the ears. And effectively what it's doing is, if you sat around a table, there's somebody at the other end of the table, you're not hearing them very well because there's other people chatting, or there's aircon going on, or windows open, and there's traffic noise or whatever, which can be quite difficult when you've got hearing loss. Well, basically, it's sort of like, if you can imagine, that person stands up from the seat, they walk all the way around and talk straight into your ear. It's overcoming that distance and reverberation and background noise. It's a wireless direct audio input. Now, if that gets more noisy, and you've got people chatting here and people chatting here, and you want to hear that person, you can actually lift up the Roger on, and it changes its microphone. It's got a built-in accelerometer, so basically it goes more like a torch beam pickup, if you like. So it's picking up more where you point it. You don't need to point it aggressively like that. You just lift it up, and the icon changes on the Roger on, and it's like a pizza slice mode, let's call it. So it's picking up maybe 2 or 3 people in the direction that you're pointing it. But the more vertical, the more directional it becomes. So let's just say you break out into a coffee break or whatever. There's 20 people all chatting like mad, all animated about that great meeting, that great content you've been involved in, and you're trying to listen to this one person there. Well, quite naturally, you hold your Roger on more vertically. It becomes super pinpoint, and it's picking up that person's voice, and it's really, really chopping down all the other noise in the room, so you can hear in that really, really tough acoustic environment. So you've got the receivers that usually attached to your hearing aids. Typically, I've seen a couple of questions on there. NHS hearing aids are usually pretty easy. Private sector hearing aids, often easy one way or another, but yeah, so that's the main transmitter. If you get to a bigger table, say up to 25 people around the table, you might use table mics in conjunction with Roger on, and that expands things out into a really large area, which is typically, and you'll confirm that, Dave, I'm sure, that it gets really, really tough if you're on a big conference table, or you're at one end, somebody's at the other end, and you're not going to hear too much, are you?
No.
But this brings everything. It brings the whole meeting right to you, and you know, it really makes such a difference. The same with telephony. Effectively, what we're doing is with the equipment that we use, without going into the technicalities of it, we're effectively turning people's hearing aids into a high quality pair of wireless earpieces matched to your hearing loss. So if you've got hearing loss, you're on the back foot a little bit anyway. You know, with the hearing loss, and the hearing aids help, but maybe not as well as you'd like. difficult with telephony and video calls, but you get that audio streaming directed to both your ears, both your hearing aids, and your hearing aids match the hearing loss. It's as good as it gets. We've had instances where people have not been able to hear phone calls, voice calls for years or ever, and you know, the equipment that we supply, you know, we supply the equipment, we do the training on the equipment, and then that person all of a sudden can have a very normal, easy conversation. It's a really powerful thing that we're doing there, and it's a very emotional thing when the trainers actually deliver the equipment and can see, you know, quite often there's tears and emotion and everything. It's really cool. Yeah. Have I answered that question, or have I just rabbited on for about 5-10 minutes?
No, that's great, Paul. I think
Sorry, guys.
It's absolutely vital. It's really, really useful and extremely interesting. Just before I move on to the next question, there's a couple of questions around saying that people are actually using Roger pens, and you guys have mentioned the Roger On. Is that mean the Roger pen is older equipment, or just if you've got a quick overview in terms of the difference with these two?
Yeah. So 10 years ago, Roger Pen was a trailblazer product. It was very innovative. It had a huge impact. An iconic product, if you like. Yeah, won lots of design awards and made a huge difference. But things move on. The technology's improved. So Roger Pen is discontinued now. It still does the same job it ever did. You know, it's still a very good product. But after the Roger Pen, the Roger Select came out, which is still a current product. But actually, the Roger On is the Roger Pen had some limitations. The Roger Select had some limitations, and the Roger On is the best combination of those two products. And actually, it's an improvement on those two products as well, because the technology has improved as time's gone on. So if you've got Roger pens, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. It's like when you buy a motor car and then a new model comes out. Your old motor car still gets you down to Sainsbury's on a Saturday. You know, that doesn't change. But if your Roger pen is getting quite old and a little bit wobbly and you know, a little bit unreliable, you will notice a difference with Roger On with the extra functionality. You know, when we recommend and supply Roger equipment, you start off with your transmitter, your primary transmitter, which is Roger On, depending on the situations that you're in, and this is where the assessments with Posturite come in. You know, we can work out what extra equipment you need, if anything. But as a prerequisite, you start off with a Roger On to broadcast and some way or means to get the audio into your hearing aid. So that's either receivers in the ear or a receiver into some kind of streaming device. Or perhaps some kind of neck loop. The preference tends to be in that order, actually, because the best result you can get is when you're going direct to ear. But there are potentially other solutions if the ear level receivers are not suitable. But most hearing aids and hearing instruments, we've got a solution one way or the other that can make those improvements. Sometimes we just have to say, nothing we can do, you know. That tends to be little teeny tiny hearing aids that go in the ear, and there's no way to connect up wirelessly and give that benefit.
I've actually had both devices, so I've had personal experience of the Roger Pen, and then I've moved on to the Roger On. So the Roger Pen was good. It did connect to my phone by Bluetooth for me, which I found a good feature. However, now my NHS hearing aids do that direct anyway, so I don't need that feature. Where the Roger On has the functionality, like Paul said, where it can switch between speakers. That is phenomenal for meetings. It just really makes a massive difference, and it is a clearer quality sound. So yeah, I've had experience of both.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. There's a lot of questions. I'll move on from a subject point of view, because there's a lot of questions around tinnitus that has come in, and something that I know someone in my family, my brother actually has tinnitus, so it's something I've been very aware of. Paul's asked the question: just to ask for help for people with tinnitus. There's also a couple of questions around what the one-to-one strategies are all about. So perhaps if I break it down to 2 questions, if there's anything immediate individuals can do to improve, and I think David touched on it in your presentation, but also is there anything organisations can do as well to help people with tinnitus?
I'd say support them with headsets that can play the noises. So the different sounds I mentioned earlier, some like music being played, just to take the mind off the sound being there. Get a hearing test just to make sure it's not also a hearing issue as well, because mine is, and the hearing aids do suppress it. And then, yeah, over to Paul on what's involved in the one-to-ones, which really do support. We're getting some fantastic feedback on them.
Yeah. As Dave said there, you're replacing. A good strategy is to replace an unpleasant sound with a more pleasant sound. That might be a radio in the background, or like you're running water, that sort of thing. But some people say herbal remedies work. But my personal feeling as a really sort of practical sort of guy is replacement. Replacement of one noise with another. Tinnitus, it's really rare to have tinnitus and not have some level of hearing loss. Now, that level of hearing loss might not be impacting on your life and your lifestyle, but there's probably going to be some tinnitus there, unless it's something very short term, something acute like excessive wax in the ears, and you remove the wax in your ears, and the tinnitus goes away. It's lovely if it's as easy and quick as that. But the course that we personally supply is sessions with a specialist, and it's all about mindfulness, CBT, education, all that sort of stuff. And if tinnitus is taking over your life, the idea is to put the tinnitus back in the box. A lot of people with tinnitus just sort of live with it and get on with it, and the less you think about it, the less stressful you get about it, the more it tends to sort of recede in the background and always be there. And of course, when when you're trying to fall asleep at night and it's very quiet, the tinnitus, because it's generated internally, typically at a hearing nerve level, it can be more noticeable then. But people generally tend to learn to live with it, and it can go up and down and whatnot, but tend to not go away altogether. But yeah, trying to manage the symptoms if it sort of overtakes, I think that's the thing. But generally, just trying to replace one sound with another. If you've got hearing loss, wear hearing aids. That often helps. It doesn't always. It's not a magic bullet, but it can often help.
That's great. Thanks. There's quite a lot of questions that I've gone through. There's a lot of questions. So just to make you aware, if we don't get to your question, we will reach out to you individually. There's a lot of probably specific scenarios as well, and questions around personal scenarios, which we can come back to you individually. And there's a lot of questions around the open plan office environment, which hopefully we've covered in one of the earlier questions. Another question that came in prior to today was, should employers consider providing free hearing tests to employees in the same way as eye tests?
Well, we've had this recently from another client, haven't we, Andy? Personally, I think we should. I think it's something that we need to. Rather than fighting fires and finding people are having issues after the fact, why not capture it earlier and give that support as early as possible? So, yeah, many clients are starting to look at that. I believe some insurances that some clients have will support it as well. So maybe look into that, see if your insurance for your staff will support it. But yeah, in my opinion, I would say definitely yes. I think Paul would definitely agree with that as well, being an audiologist himself.
Great. Yeah. I think...
I mean, the thing is that sorry, go on.
Go on, Paul.
I was just going to say the journey to understanding you've got a hearing loss, accepting it, and then actually doing something about it. It can be a long and winding path. Typically, people when they start with hearing loss, it can be 7, 10, 12, 15 years sometimes for some people. Some people have got a very low threshold before they're driven absolutely nuts because they've got a very moderate hearing loss, and it's not, they know they've not got perfect hearing. Other people will wait while, you know, everybody around them is having to shout and it gets really difficult, and still insisting there's no hearing loss there. So it's very much an individual thing, and you've just, you know, I guess it's down to the individual themselves to understand and realize they've got a hearing loss and accept they need to do something about it. And yeah, I think it's a good benefit from like a corporate point of view. Certainly, you know, another string to the bow, another benefit that a company can offer, and maybe highlight things early. It might just speed things along a little bit in this acceptance of experiencing hearing loss, and maybe getting to the point of doing something about it. There's a lot of people that don't. You know, for every person that's addressed, it's a really interesting stat. For every person that addresses the hearing loss, I think it's through the age, not just working age. There's 4 people that don't do anything about it and just sort of cup the hand and sort of struggle along with it. So that's 1 in 5 actually address the hearing loss, which is astounding to me. But you know,
it is. That was the point I was going to raise. Really, is the thing that's sort of hitting me is the impact that it has on individuals, and you think of the not just the subject in question, you know, the mental health and the impact it has with relationships and everything. So yeah, it's quite a big stat. And I think the big thing with a lot of the comments coming in and the question we've had previously is perhaps, you know, there's a lot of individual stories in terms of what support is available and what support for their particular situations and environments and scenarios. So that probably leads in nicely to the next question. Is there a catalogue of equipment options that explain what each item does and what scenario it would be useful for?
That's a definite. So yeah, so like we said, Paul's been working with us quite closely on all the different types of equipment and different scenarios that can be used for. However, it's not something you can just say this is perfect for them, let's buy that in. We need to look at what the working job role is, the requirements that they might need, that type of technology, but also what the hearing aids are. The make and model. We're seeing more and more different types. Like Paul said, the little tiny in-ear ones are difficult to support. So we need to know all the different technical information as well. Have they had the audiologist switch the functionality on? I had to have my audiologist switch my functionality on so it will work with the Roger devices. So we need to work closer with the individual. So yeah, even though you might have a kit and what it can support, it's not let's just go shopping and buy that for this individual. It needs a little bit more technical looking at, really.
Yeah, yeah. Just touching on that point. So, you know, from my point of view, from the supply end, the products that we supply, they're quite a complex bundle, really, and there's a lot of variation based on the individual circumstances. You know, what we don't want to do as a supplier of, I would say, of high repute. You know, our reputation is really important, and the reason that we work a lot with Posturite is because we think that you know, like-minded individuals, like-minded organisations working together, we should be working with people like Posturite. But you know, it's really important to have an assessment to work out the need and to meet the need, and to make sure that when we're involved in supplying equipment and the training that follows with that, and all the aftercare that we supply throughout the journey of ownership, that things aren't over or underspecified. Both ways is in my eyes is terrible. Overspecified, you've got kit that stays in a drawer, never used because it's not required, and that's a total waste of everybody's time and money. And also underspecifying equipment and you know, not meeting the need. That's probably worse. Yeah, it is worse, isn't it? But we want to get the balance right, and it's you know, it's the assessment is critical, and then with us and Posturite working together, we can be the guardians of that and just make sure that everything is appropriate and you know, meets the need and creates the you know, the best situation for individuals and organizations to you know, follow this thing about accessibility and inclusivity. We really want to motivate it to do a great job for the individuals and the organizations that they work for.
Right.
That's genuine.
Thanks, guys.
Genuine, yeah.
There's a comment around getting the written summary responses to the questions that are being asked. So yeah, I'll answer that. Yeah, we certainly can do that. I think it's sort of valuable information for a lot of people in terms of what are the next steps, what do people do once this webinar finishes. From a support point of view, I'll just hark back to the enablement at posturite.co.uk inbox, that if there are any queries, both general or specific, then come through. We can filter those to the relevant people, i.e. Paul, Dave, or anyone else within the enablement team that can help. So I'd encourage that the queries come through there. There's a few questions around compatibility, and I know we do get quite a few queries in terms of compatibility and it being maybe a little bit overwhelming in terms of, okay, well, we need equipment. Is it compatible with X? There's a question around the compatibility with the NHS hearing aids, but whether you want to make any sort of general comments on compatibility and how easy or not easy it is from an equipment and setting up the equipment point of view.
But for me, I use NHS Oticon hearing aids. So I've got no issues with the connection to them. I had the older version before that, and I had different connectors. So there's different shoes that you connect, and then the receivers go into them. You'll probably not be able to see it too well on the camera, but the receiver's on the end of a shoe. Have you got one? There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah. So like Paul said, the majority of hearing aids we can support in different ways, like with the cochlear ones, etc. We just need to know the make and model. Some where they're very in ear, we can struggle with, but there are other ways. As long as the telecall switched on, they can wear a receiver loop around the neck and basically switch to telecoil, and they'll receive into the hearing aids if that functionality is available. Some of your big companies that are now pushing to have tests done and supplying aids like you know, your Specsavers, your Boots, are not supplying standard hearing aids these days, so you've got to be careful with them. And it's all about getting the audiologists to switch things on. But we use Paul's service because they ensure everything is correct before we come on site, and then they make sure everything's set up, the individuals trained how to use it, and everything's in tune. So how to use it in meetings, how to use it on calls, everything's all fine-tuned, which is fantastic. It's been brilliant for us. A big joke there, Paul, without you getting involved.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, there's certain prerequisites that we absolutely need, and we don't want to progress things any further until we've got the minimum amount of information to be able to basically give advice and on compatibility and whatnot, and just know that what we're shipping out the door is going to be right. It's the worst thing in the world to us if one of our trainers arrives on site, things aren't working, things aren't going to work, and everything's all wrong. We can fix things after the fact, but it's just 10 times harder than if you fix things right at the start. So things like the brand and model of hearing instrument, whether it's hearing aids, bone anchored hearing aids, cochlear implants, whatever, that's absolutely the bare minimum of what we need. But ideally we want to know what sort of telephony or video. We want to know things like the size of meetings that are attended, you know, the type of environments. It's not too onerous a list of what we need to be able to be very definitive about what we feel as an audiology company is going to make the maximum impact without over-specking or under-specking. And we can, we work, as I say, very closely with Posturite to make sure that it works in a very slick way. We don't mess about, we want to do the job right, and we want people to be super impressed with what we do. Nobody's ever perfect, but if we mess up, we go out of our way to put it right. And mostly people have got a good opinion of us. I guess there'll be people out there that don't, but generally, that we've got a good reputation there, and we just want to do a good job for people.
That's great. Thanks, Paul. And actually, it's been endorsed in the chat that someone's worked with you previously. So it's just for to back up what you said. I think from my point of view, then in terms of support and compatibility and all these questions in different environments, it does hammer home in terms of how important that assessment and that start to finish process is for someone to actually get someone on the right pathway in terms of finding the right solution for them and in their environment and relating to their job role, which leads me to the very important question of cost. So what's the cost for a company for an assessment to help with hearing loss?
I believe ours is 525, is it, Andy? The workplace assessment that we do.
Yeah.
525, and then what happens, like I mentioned in the slide earlier, after the assessment, we'll contact the individual, arrange the assessment's delivered, and then a full report's drafted up, and then we follow that along with a quotation on recommended products, so you get full visibility of what the end cost will be for an individual, and that will include delivery, installation and training, so we'll set up and make sure everything's fine-tuned and trained on for the individual, and we double check everything as well. So at point of the order coming through to us, we'll double check they haven't changed their hearing aids, which can happen. So they might have gone and had another check and they get new hearing aids, and all of a sudden it's different equipment required. So we always double check that, and then, like Paul said, they fine tune it after. So yeah.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, so we've probably got time for a couple more questions. So again, apologies if you've not got to yours, but we will 100% reach out to you individually. There is a really good question, probably more so of preventative measures. So have you got any recommendations for manufacturing companies that should be focusing on avoiding hearing loss amongst staff? I.e. things like earplugs, etc., whether there's any sort of personal experiences or anything in terms of what's out there for organisations to be aware of from a preventative measure.
I think from my personal experience, but working in a kind of foundry in the past, is ensuring that you ensure, and that's obviously a health and safety requirement, that you ensure what's provided to them supports the individual in a noisy environment, that they're actually wearing them. That's the big one. You can supply it, but are they wearing them? So even just a visual check on the individuals, ensuring that they are, and getting them to sign that they've actually received the equipment and they will be wearing it, and that just covers yourself legally, because obviously working in a very, very noisy environment, it can very, very quickly damage your hearing. I don't know if you've got any experience, Paul.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. So we don't supply a lot of it here. We run an audiology clinic here, as well as other things that we do. We wax removal, all sorts here. But one of the things that we do from time to time, it's very, very local. We wouldn't be able to do this nationwide like we do the other stuff that we do. But basically, working in a noisy environment, typically you'll get these disposable ear plugs and you scrunch them up and stick them in your ear, and they're not very effective at all. But they're cheap, so you buy them by the bucket load. And then you've got custom earplugs where you get an audiologist or somebody that's capable of taking an impression of the ear to get some custom made molds, which might be £100, £125 or something, with a filter in there, so that basically you can still hear speech through them, and they're going to protect you against the extremely loud sounds, which you get above 80, 85 dB, loud machinery noise. and when you look at the lifespan of custom made products, yeah, you've got an upfront cost, but overall over the lifespan of these plugs, which might be maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years or something, it's actually more cost effective than disposable plugs, and actually you're properly protecting people's ears there as well. So but you don't see a lot of it because it's just having a foresight to actually do your sums and say, you know what, we're going to supply custom earplugs for the staff. There's a bigger upfront cost, but in the long run, it's cheaper, and we're protecting the staff.
That's great, thanks. I will wrap up, but I just want to mention one thing, because there's quite a few comments and questions around access to work, and I know this is potentially probably a webinar within itself in terms of access to work, and fantastic scheme that provides funding for individuals to provide the right equipment for them to work. If people have had access to work assessments, it's probably one for you, Dave. This is certainly something we can help with, can't we, in terms of, of that implementation process and helping providing equipment.
Yeah, so I've been through the process myself. So yeah, access to work will recommend certain products. There are sometimes errors. We're seeing a lot of that. We're getting badly recommended products, or like I've said, somebody's changed their hearing aids by the time the report comes back, because there are some delays with access to work. Although it is a great scheme, but we can provide, we're access to work approved suppliers. So we can get involved and supply the kit, give the support as a one-stop solution, so you're not going all over the place for the supply, install, training, that kind of thing. But yeah, at least we back it up with guaranteed accuracy. We'll check the kit, we'll check that it's right, what's been recommended, and work with the employer and employee on that.
Paul, final word.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that. I know we're running out of time there, but just very quickly, right now the wait times to go through an access to work report, and we do have a lot of dealings with access to work. They're really quite horrendously long at the moment. With access to work, you do get free assessment and a contribution towards costs, but the problem is obviously that when you with the contribution towards cost, the larger the employer, the more people you've got on your payroll, if you like, the less that you get from access to work. And between ourselves and Posturite, we could probably turn around a solution within a small number of weeks. Probably, if all the stars align, and an employer and Posturite and FM hearing systems all work at the best, it could easily be turn things around in a couple of weeks instead of many months. And when you're an employee and you're really struggling, and you're in fear of losing your employment because of your hearing loss, or something quite drastic like that, or really struggling, it's affecting your mental health. A few weeks versus many months. Sometimes it might be worth, particularly larger organisations thinking, you know what, we're just gonna get this sorted quicker. We're just going to go direct to Posturite. But obviously that's something that an organisation would need to make a decision on. But that's potentially a different way of looking at it to get things moving quicker.
Great, thanks, James. Yeah, we have. I speak for personal experience. We are helping a lot of people with the access to work process. So I would encourage people to reach out, which leads me sort of nicely to remind everyone that if there are any queries, please contact the enablement at posturite.co.uk inbox. Reach out to ourselves. We're all on LinkedIn, freely available. And just from myself to say thank you to David, to Paul, to Sarah, to BB, phenomenal. And for everyone that's engaged in the webinar, asked questions. There's some great feedback on the chat, so I really do appreciate that. We really enjoy doing these webinars because it just brings a lot of people together that have got similar stories, and it's sort of we're really passionate about helping people in these areas. So we really appreciate everyone engaging within the webinar. And if you do want to watch back, this will be on the website. As I've mentioned earlier, slides will be made available. There'll be ways to engage with us via the website, and there will be a follow-up email, hopefully later today, this afternoon, centrally from the Posturite mailbox with some follow-up information on there as well. So it leads me to say thank you very much to everyone involved, and we sincerely hope to see you all on the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.